This video is part of a series. It's heavy in scientific terminology and may expect familiarity with previous videos. If you're confused, please watch the rest of the playlist up until this point, or check out my genetics terminology document, both of which are linked in the description. Thanks! This is the video where I cover a bunch of stuff that doesn't really fit into any other category. If there's a phenotype I don't cover in this video that you want to know more about, comment, and if I get enough of them that are really interesting, in-depth, or ethically important, I might make another video to cover them too. Heads up, this video is going to be rough. There's a lot of seriously unethical mutations people have bred into cats for cosmetic reasons. I'm going to try to alternate between talking about awful bad mutations and ones that aren't so depressing, so we don't end up too deep in the sad for too long. I'm also not going to show any gore photos or anything, don't worry about that. A foldy is a cat whose ears fold down like this, as seen in the Scottish Fold breed. In fact, the gene that causes it is sometimes called the Scottish Fold gene. I'm going to call it the foldy gene to avoid confusion between this single phenotype and the breed it's associated with. Folded ears are just the most visible part of what this gene does, which is cause bone and cartilage deformities that also give the cat a painful degenerative disease called osteochondrodysplasia. Forgive the clumsy pronunciation, please. It's an incompletely dominant allele represented by capital FD. Homo and heterozygotes will both have folded ears and develop osteochondrodysplasia. However, FD homozygotes have far more severe osteochondrodysplasia than heterozygotes, and heterozygotes have a slim chance of not developing the disease at all. Little FD is the normal ear allele. Not so fun fact, the Scottish Fold is considered so laid back and lazy because they're often in too much pain to move around and play. Not an ethical trait. On a lighter note, the curly ear phenotype found in American curls has not been found, so far, to be associated with any debilitating conditions, although they do have an increased chance of ear infections and thus they need more regular cleaning. Curly-eared cats are born with normal ears that start to curl backward as the cat grows up. It's also dominant, completely this time, and is represented by capital CU. Little cu is the normal-eared allele. Manx is another gene named after the breed they made around it. As always, I'm talking about the mutation that the breed expresses, not the breed itself. Manx affects the development of the spinal cord, which includes the tail, and is incompletely dominant, represented by capital M. The normal tail allele is little m. Homozygous capital M cats do not survive. It is a lethal phenotype. They die before birth and are stillborn. Heterozygous capital M little m cats can vary significantly in expression, though we don't know the exact genes or causes behind the variation. Heterozygous cats may have short, stumpy tails, or they may be totally tailless. The more tailless a cat is, the more likely they are to have significant skeletal and organ defects, which can lead to partial paralysis, painful infections, and/or incontinence, amongst other things. Heterozygous Manx cats frequently die before they even reach 1 year old. On a lighter note, the Japanese bobtail gene, also named after its breed, is also incompletely dominant, but not associated with nearly so many problems. No skeletal or organ disorders, and no lethality. Japanese bobtail is represented by capital JB, normal tails are little jb. Both heterozygotes and capital JB homozygotes have shortened quote-unquote bob tails with a kink in them. However, homozygotes have shorter bobs and more kink. Cats use their tails for communication and balance, so regardless of the gene behind it, having any form of severely shortened tail inhibits natural behaviors, which can leave the cat flustered and stressed, or in the case of communication, just not getting along. Munchkin cats have short, stubby legs, but the rest of their bodies are normally proportioned. It's an understudied mutation, and a more recent one, so our understanding of its effects on the cat's well-being is in its infancy. However, there are a few things I can say. Munchkin cats are at high risk for developing osteoarthritis, a painful degenerative disease that involves breaking down of cartilage, joints, and bones. They also commonly suffer from pectus excavatum, in which there's not enough room in the body for the heart and lungs, so their respiration and breathing suck. They're also much more susceptible to lordosis, in which the spine lowers and puts potentially fatal pressure on the heart, lungs, and trachea, not to mention how painful it is on the spine and shoulders. Also, shorter limbs mean the cat has a harder time expressing natural behaviors and thus have a lower quality of life than non-munchkins. They can't jump nearly as well, and cats need vertical territory in order to feel happy, fulfilled, and safe. The average cat is expected to live 15 to 20 years indoors, but Munchkin cats are only expected to live 12 to 15 years. Munchkin cats also produce smaller litters, which seems to suggest a degree of lethality. It's suspected that kittens are dying before they have much of a chance to develop and are being reabsorbed by the mother, but this is only the proposed model and, as of this video, is still being researched. It's a dominant allele represented by capital MK, although one version of the lethality model suggests it might be incomplete dominant, where only homozygous kittens die in the womb. For now, we're just going to say it's completely dominant. The non-Munchkin allele, predictably, is little mk. I'll take a moment to talk about smushed or Persian-style faces, aka cats who suffer from brachycephalic syndrome. First, the genetic angle. I can't find any inheritance models for this condition. It seems to be a polygenetic gradient trait steadily bred for over several generations. Brachycephaly is graded on a scale of 1 to 4, with 1 being the least severe and 4 being the most severe. Because this is primarily a genetics video series and not a medical conditions video series, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but brachycephalic animals suffer not only breathing-related health issues, but also severe dental problems, various eye problems, and a lot more. The structures that make up a cat's or any animal's face are complicated. You can't just make it shorter and expect everything to still be functional. It's a ripple effect, and it makes everything worse. Moving on. Polydactylism is the fancy science word for too many dang toes. Cats with polydactylism are sometimes called Hemingway cats, but I'm going to stick to calling them polydactyls here. In cats, the polydactyl allele, represented by capital PD, is a mutation in a regulatory region of genes, specifically the ones that regulate some of the genes where limbs develop, including toe digits. This causes an extra toe near the dew claw that kind of looks like a thumb. This is, thankfully, a largely harmless mutation. Polydactyl cats may be more prone to injury, lameness, and infections, especially at the nail bed. In the case that the toes fuse in development, they may have some irregular growth and potentially pain, but in the grand scheme of things, it's one of the less severe traits and generally safe for a cat to have. Generally speaking, it's impossible for a cat to have blue eyes without some form of quote-unquote true white, such as leucism or some types of albinism. This is because blue eyes aren't the result of blue pigment, but rather a lack of pigment revealing the iris's underlying structural blue color. But there's exceptions to the rule. Let's start with the one I hear about all the time. Ojos azules. Again, please forgive clumsy pronunciation. This gets used all the time by people with OCs or warriors' headcanons to excuse blue-eyed cats with no white without the barest minimum of research into what the Ojos azules mutation actually was. And I do mean was. The Ojos azules gene is extinct, and it has been for a long time. This is because the gene behind Ojos azules was homozygous lethal. Homozygous kittens were stillborn with white fur, curled tails, and cranial deformities. And for once, breeders did the right thing and stopped breeding for this mutation, letting it go extinct. Some heterozygous cats had blue eyes without any white, but many Ojos azules cats did have white, ranging from just a few white hairs to an entire patch. They also tended to have flat tail tips for some reason. A lot of people are tricked into thinking Ojos azules is still around, and this is partially because there are a number of blue-eyed causing mutations that just kind of pop up and get discovered here and there. And even if they give the cat blue eyes, hell, even if they work exactly the same way, they won't be Ojos azules, because that was a specific mutation that a specific cat had that he passed into a lineage that has died out. Extinction is forever. They're your OCs and your headcanons, so obviously do whatever you want, but if you want my advice, if all you want is a blue-eyed cat without white, don't say they have Ojos azules. Just say they have a mutation and leave it at that, or look up other blue-eyed mutations. They keep showing up, and we don't have a good understanding of any of them, so the world's your sandbox. But if you do want to use Ojos azules, I can't find any standards for the allele, so use whatever letters you want. The important part is that the Ojos azules mutation is incompletely dominant, where heterozygotes display the blue-eyed condition, and homozygotes die. Another interesting eye color mutation is Topaz. This one is fascinating to me, but sadly it's another brand new mutation from 2016, with very little available research. It's also a Ukrainian and Russian mutation, being studied primarily in Ukraine and in Russia, so English Google won't even give me what little we do have. The original Topaz cats from 2016 were blue-eyed, resembling, and in fact initially mistaken for Ojos azules. One Topaz lineage eventually saw cats born with almost black or extremely dark green eyes, but none of them survived, and that lineage has not been bred since. But for the blue-eyed Topazes, so far,
So far, this is a brand new mutation, and we don't know much yet.
No severe physical deformities have been found to be associated with Topaz, although most homozygotes are deaf. There is a slight shortening and deformation of the nose, but it doesn't seem to impact breathing or sense of smell so far. In addition to blue eyes, the Topaz gene causes interesting white patterns, where instead of the white, quote-unquote, coming from the underside of the cat and spreading up, it comes from the face and spreads back. Topaz cats might have a badger-like stripe, or even a full-on half-and-half situation that looks like they're wearing pants. Some Topazes even have a chipmunk pattern along the butt of the spine and up the tail. Sometimes Topaz cats are born with roaning, where some hairs are white, causing a grizzled look, despite being genetically black. These cats might grow out of their roaning and develop normal black fur, or the roaning might increase and develop into a grayish, fully grizzled cat. Since the two founding cats were found so far apart, one in Ukraine and one in Russia, it's possible that two different mutations may be working together to cause the Topaz phenotypes as we understand them. The high white phenotypes, pants and chipmunk, are said to be homozygous phenotypes, suggesting incomplete dominance. It's worth noting that Topaz's breeders are reportedly avoiding breeding together homozygotes, most likely out of caution, which I think is wise. From this information, we can tentatively treat Topaz, if it was monogenetic, as an incompletely dominant allele. I couldn't find any letters to represent Topaz, so just make some up. To summarize, homozygous Topaz cats are more likely to be deaf, with large white markings that start at the face and blue eyes. Heterozygous Topaz non-Topaz cats aren't associated with deafness, and either have smaller white markings that also start at the face, or no white at all, but still have blue eyes. No practice squares this time. If you've made it this far into the series, then I trust you to know Punnett squares well enough to handle simple, complete, and incomplete dominance. If this is your first video in the series and you need help with Punnett squares, please watch the first video, Concepts and Terminology. It has a section on Punnett squares, and previous videos in the series all have practice squares too. This concludes my series on cat genetics for writers and artists, at least for the time being. As said at the beginning, feel free to suggest more traits, and I'll compile the ones I think are worth discussing. Moreover, though, I hope watching the whole series has given you a solid enough foundation in genetics that you're capable of researching interesting traits for yourself, and of course I'll always be answering questions in the comments as best as I can. That being said, some kind and smart people have left comments correcting various mistakes and oversights over the series, so I plan to make one final corrections video where I cover those mistakes. I'd also like to make future series covering other animals' genomes, so if that's something you're interested in, let me know and tell me which species you'd like to see me cover. So, I'll see you for those. Bye-bye!